So good afternoon again, everyone, and bonjour for those who speak French. Welcome to this afternoon's seminar, where we will examine options for Haiti, external intervention and its alternatives. My name is Natalie Dietrich Jones, Research Fellow at SALISES, and I will be moderating our proceedings. So I'm pleased to see the support for Haiti expressed through the turnout for this evening, which we anticipate will grow based on the registration. The idea for this seminar first presented to me as a special lecture for the core course in the MSc Development Studies, Small States Development Challenges and Opportunities. However, the importance of the topic and a desire to have information circulated as widely as possible has led to the convening of this roundtable. I'm happy that our panelists consented to participate and share their expertise. Today, we will have a mix of the personal and political based on panelists' lived experiences as academics, transnational Haitians, and friends of Haiti. And I thank you all for so willingly agreeing to share today. Renowned Haitian writer Edwige Danticat has said, "I think Haiti is a place that suffers so much from neglect that people only want to hear about it when it's at its extreme. And that's what they end up knowing about it." Unfortunately, Haiti has been facing a series of extreme moments, but we hope today to shed some light and explore alternatives for Haiti. So to start our session off, I will invite our newly installed director at SALISES MONA, Dr. Holger Henke, to deliver opening remarks. Over to you, Dr. Henke.
Thank you, Dr. Jones, and good afternoon, friends of Haiti, chers amis d'Haïti. On behalf of all of us at Sir Arthur Lewis Institute for Social and Economic Studies, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to this webinar and the great issues it will discuss this afternoon. Le pays d'Haïti a été aux yeux du monde occidental en particulier, presque oublié, peut-être pourrait-on même dire, il a été effacé. En proie à une histoire difficile, à un environnement naturel difficile, en proie tour à tour des interventions étrangères de toutes sortes et à des catastrophes naturelles que beaucoup dans cette région et au-delà connaissent bien. Haïti a néanmoins aussi produit une révolution glorieuse, un espace merveilleux de créativité artistique, une diaspora engagée et performante. Haïti a survécu, mais dans la souffrance et continue encore de souffrir. For us in this region, we better not dare to neglect Haiti. In 1804, Haiti set the tone for what in the English-speaking Caribbean took another 135 or so years. And in the case of Cuba, 150 or so years. That is an active, broad-based movement towards decolonization. As my colleague Clinton Hutton in the Department of Government has pointed out in his work, the notion of human rights, which was defined, embraced, and put into action in Haiti, went well beyond that of the French Revolution. C.L.R. James therefore called Haiti's revolutionaries the Black Jacobins. Also important, the African heritage of this region resonates loudest in Haiti. Most of all, Haiti is integral part of what the Cuban philosopher Roberto Fernandez Retamar, following Jose Marti, calls our America. Wait, let me say that again. Our America. Retama notes that what he calls the renovating cycle inaugurated in 1959 in Cuba seemed to come to a close with the 1961 intervention in Cuba, with the 1965 intervention in the Dominican Republic, with the 1983 invasion of Grenada, and with the 1989 intervention in Panama. We must not neglect Haiti's plight. I believe there may be signs in recent years that a new cycle has started or is about to start with, for example, the movement towards reparatory justice in the Caribbean and elsewhere in the world. And there may be hope coming out of Africa, Rwanda of all places, which of course had one of the most horrific genocide experiences in the last century. Under the leadership of President Paul Kagame, Rwanda is now in the midst of reinventing itself, its economy, its society. Reinventing to the point, I'm told, that a virtual sort of development tourism has started to take hold, where many countries curious about Rwanda's initiatives and successes are traveling there to learn about the genocide, as well as about the energy and impetus drawn out of the reconciliation process afterwards. They also learn about the strong, but by no means uncontroversial leadership of President Kagame, which has led to many success stories in Rwanda in key areas, from education and agriculture to healthcare and security. Rwanda has a majority female parliament and is considered a world leader in gender equality. So perhaps the phoenix is not a mythical animal after all. Now, development, economic, social, sustainable, or whatever qualifier may apply, is under best of circumstances a complex, complicated, multifactorial process that cannot be reduced to a single or even just a handful of magic ingredients. It seems to me, however, that the following three are, also in relation to Haiti's future, are of significance. They are governance, capacity building, and the availability of finance, or at least of very significant resources. My heartfelt thank you to all our presenters who are here today to lend us their valuable time and expertise. And congratulations to our in-house expert, Dr. NATALIE Dietrich-Jones, for organizing this event. To you, the viewers and participants, I also say thank you for the privilege of your time. I hope that we all walk away from this conversation with new insights and renewed determination to stand close to our American neighbors in Haiti. I'm inviting all of you to follow SALISES Mona on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and/or on Facebook. There are more events coming soon, and we intend to grow our presence on these social media spaces. Now, finally, last year, SALISES entered into an MOU with a school in Haiti. The leadership of that school just last week reached out to us in an urgent plea for support. In fact, in his message, he spoke about the students at his school crossing a big water in front of them, which is misery. Together with another partner organization in this MOU, we are preparing to ask for monetary donations for these children at that school. To this end, I want to introduce Ms. Myrtha Dusul, who is the leader of this partner organization, the Haiti Jamaica Society, who will now say a few words regarding this initiative and how we will go about it. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Dr. Henke. Mirta, please unmute if you're hearing us. You may go ahead with your remarks.
Sorry, I was having a problem on muting.
Okay, we're hearing you now.
Yes, okay. So should I turn on my video or not? Or
Choice is yours.
let me see. Okay. Not managing. Okay. Like, well, came on. Okay. Okay, so sorry about these little technical glitches. Good day to all. Thank you to SALISES for hosting this seminar on options for Haiti. And thank you to Pat Northover, Dr. Dietrich Jones and Dr. Henke for inviting me to say a few words about our newly formed collaboration on behalf of the children of Haiti. So as you all know, Haiti is going through some excruciatingly difficult times right now, and the children are the first and the most vulnerable victims of this catastrophic situation. In conversation with my friend Pat, I spoke to her about École Vision Mondiale, a global vision school in English, which I have been trying to support for a few years. So École Vision Mondiale is led by Pastor Calix Isalem and situated in the district of Las Caobas. It is a mixed institution which has a student body of 196 pupils, which Pastor Calix has been struggling to keep educating against all odds, even though they have basically been surviving on faith and just their sheer determination to keep the children in school. So Pat, who has an extraordinary sense of love and empathy for Haiti, came up with the idea of a collaboration between SALISES, my Haiti Jamaica Society, and École Vision Mondiale to basically adopt the school. So Dr. Henke and Dr. Dietrich Jones very kindly accepted to come on board, and Mrs. Cara Harris very efficiently drafted the MOU for us, and we were on our merry way. So we have decided to take the opportunity of this seminar to do a soft pre-launch of the project. We are very grateful indeed for these great Caribbean patriots and their very deep concern for the children of Haiti and for their willingness to participate and support this wonderful adventure. I also see on the panel several faces that I know quite well who have been in the trenches in the struggle for Haiti for many decades, and I'm very happy to see them here and look forward to hearing their brilliant contributions. So we look forward to working with our colleagues on turning the school into an institution which not only SALISES, but all of us can be proud of. An institution which will permit the attending students to achieve their God-given potential and stand as a testament to the power of solidarity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, thank you, Ms. Desoun, and we look forward to our continued partnership. Now that we have our preliminaries taken care of, I will take the opportunity to introduce our panelists. I'm going to take two at a turn based on our own running order. So I will first introduce Dr. MARIE-JOSÉ NZENGOU-TAYO and Dr. George FAURIOL. Each, just as a reminder, each panelist has 12 minutes to make their interventions, and I will just give you a prompt in the chat if you are nearing your time. Dr. NZENGOU-TAYO and Dr. FAURIOL will address the historical antecedents of the current crisis and speak to the option of external intervention and alternatives. Dr. MARIE-JOSÉ is an independent scholar, retired from the University of the West Indies, Mona, where she taught in the Faculty of Humanities and Education. Her most recent publications are included in journals such as Reliefs, as well as in co-edited publications related to the work of Edwidge Danticat. So you can look out for the Bloomsbury Handbook to Edwidge Danticat. She's currently a freelance interpreter and a translator, and review editor for the Journal of Haitian Studies. Dr. George is a senior associate at the Center for Strategic and International Studies and a co-chair of the Caribbean Policy Consortium. He is retired from the National Endowment for Democracy, where he was vice president for grants, operations, and evaluation, and also taught in the Democracy and Governance program at Georgetown University. He previously served as senior vice president at one of the National Endowment for Democracy's implementing institutes, the International Republican Institute, and also held a number of program positions at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Dr. FAURIOL holds a PhD in International Relations from the University of Pennsylvania. So I'll hand over to Dr. NZENGOU-TAYO first, and then once she's through, George, you can take the floor.
Okay. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for this invitation to participate in this panel. And it's a great pleasure and honor for me to be here. It is kind of difficult to talk about the situation in Haiti when you are Haitian and when you are parents that are living in Haiti. So my presentation is my idea was to set the decor in a way to give you some background information about what is the situation, how have we reached that situation in Haiti. And for that, I would like to, do you have the presentation? I would like just to give you some indicators and also to go back to 1986 with the overthrow of Jean-Claude Duvalier. So first, can I move it with this? Yes. Yes, okay. So first, just a map to give you, it is a fanciful map, but just to give you an idea of the territory that we are talking about. And all the events mostly, and the most violent events are taking place in Port-au-Prince and the surrounding commune of Port-au-Prince. However, it doesn't mean that the other departments are safe, because you have gangs or armed groups that are operating almost everywhere in the country. And this is one of the biggest drama and, well, tragedy, I would say, of the country, because we have no rule of the law, and we have those gangs that are operating almost everywhere. I put this map on, even though it is fanciful, because it shows you the structure, the administrative division of the country. When I was a child, there was only 5 departments. Now we are the double. We are the double And so those new departments, of course, they were designed based on the geographic nature of the country in terms of accessibility. So therefore, you will hear Haitians usually refer to the 10 geographic departments. And this is, and you can see the north, northeast, northwest, center, west, southwest, south. And of course, always the exception to the rule. You have 3 departments that have they don't have a geographic name, but they are rather a location name like Grand'Anse, Nip, and Artibonite. Artibonite is a huge department, and usually it is divided into all Artibonite that is connected to Gonaïves, and Bas Artibonite, which is connected to Saint-Marc, which is at the south of Artibonite region. So this also one of the main issues that has been in the recent years in the forefront of the reform, the project of constitutional reform, was the issue of regionalization. The region, because the 1987 Constitution had in mind to have a regional, so a decentralized approach to governance in the country. However, this decentralization never took place. And one of the arguments of the new constitution was to remove the idea of decentralization and concentrate the power in the West, in the capital city. So this is one thing. The other thing, the other element that is important is demography. The 10 department does not have an equal distribution of population. And if you can see in this graphic here, each color represents one department, and you have 2 departments that are heavily depopulated. One is the West, the Department of the West, and the other one is the Artibonite department. This is coincidental with the geography, because the West is where you have the largest plain, the plaine du cul-de-sac, and the Artibonite region is where you have the valley of the Artibonite, which is crossed by the Artibonite River. So where you have flatlands, you have concentration of population, and where you have a mountainous range, the population is more scattered and less important. So this is the second element. The third element, the third factor, is demography. Haiti is in terms of age groups, is a country where the youth population is larger than the old or mature population. Today in 2022, the calculation was that the median age of the population was 24. So you have a very large population that is less than 25, meaning that in terms of labor force, you have a large population that is dependent on the adults population. And this is also an issue, particularly if you look at the group that is the 15 to 20, that would be the adolescent group and young adult group. The large this large group presents the elements that is at risk in a gun situation, because usually, I don't know if I'm not a sociologist, but from my personal experience of adolescence, growing up as an adolescent, adolescence is a time where you kind of steer away from your family and you tend to get to have a group of your peers, the adolescent group. When you are well-behaved, it is a crew, but when you are not that well-behaved, you become a gang. And I think this is an element that we have to take into account when we discuss the gang situation in Haiti, in terms of the youth of those gang members. So this is the background, and that you can see also. The next element that I wanted to draw your attention to is the economic situation. It is that, in fact, the deterioration of the economy has been consistent almost from it was before 1986. I think maybe roughly, I would say the last years of the Duvalier dictatorship, because of the political pressure on the Duvalier, the economy started to deteriorate. And after the coup, and due to constant unrest, the economy has continued to go into negative figures. And you can see here, for example, the population has increased. However, in terms of the economy, for example, for 2022, the statistics, the Institute of Statistics had noted a negative figure in terms of economic activity. You had a minus 2.3%. Inflation in December 2022 was officially at 48.3%. And currently, the last figure I heard, I don't know if they are documented or not, but the people were, because of the recent crisis, they were talking about in the 70%, even 80% increase of inflation. Okay, but I cannot guarantee the authenticity of those and the accuracy of those figures. And in terms of economic growth, in 21-22, you had a negative growth of minus 1.7%. And these figures, these negative figures, and I remember my own experience in I was conducting research in 2005. There were negative growth figures still. And at that time, it was the survival mode was possible thanks to remittances from the diaspora. So that it is, if in terms of bankruptcy, there is no official bankruptcy, it is, I would say, thanks to the remittances of the diaspora. So which means that in the current situation, that economically, I don't know how the country is surviving in terms of activities, because since 2018, 2018, there had been the Pays Loc that had been, it is a movement that had been, launched, I would say, between inverted commas, okay? But by, I don't know if I'm accusing him falsely, but Moïse Jean-Charles, a politician, a Haitian politician, was the one who was pushing for Pays Loc. And he thought that by blocking the economic activities, maybe he would have find a kind of solution to. It was against the president Jovenel Moïse, and he thought that having a paylock that would last, that would force the president, who was controversial at that time, to resign or something of that sort. Of course, it did not happen, and we know the tragic end of the president, which was killed. He was assassinated by a foreign armed group, of course, with certainly local complicity. But anyway, so this has contributed now to further deterioration in terms of governance, in terms of the economy, because you have in place, there is no parliament in place because no elections were conducted, and the parliament, the mandate of parliamentarians had come to an end. Their mandate had come to an end, so there was no parliament. The Senate was supposed to be renewed by chaired by the chair. What is it chair in English? The chair of the Senate was to be renewed each time. And so what happened is that now, at one point, before the assassination of Jovenel Moïse, there was only 1/3 of the parliament that was still working, but still appointing. And so after the death, it was maybe end of last year or early this year, I think early this year, the last third of the parliament mandate came to an end. So therefore now you have no parliament. So no parliament, no Senate, sorry, I was talking about the Senate, no parliament. And the government that is there is, I would say personally, that is an illegitimate government because it was never approved by a parliament, which was not existing. So therefore, you have a situation where you have a controversial, illegitimate government that is in place that is supposed to run the country. That government is using decrees in order to govern. And in addition, you have a civil service that is in disarray, that is on what a friend of mine used the expression automatic pilot. So that they don't have any, there is no leadership. Opposing that force, you don't have any leadership figure that is coming out, that is imposing, that is recognized, and that is accepted. And so you have a lot of people that are trying to position and to make proposals. There had been an attempt by a group of political groups to come together and propose an agreement that is known as the Accord de Montana, the Montana Agreement. But to date, nothing has been they have not been able to implement that agreement. Last December, 2 minutes, yes. So this is maybe, I think, a very grim picture. And in that condition where you have the total disarray in terms of governance, governing body, you have the emergence of criminal gangs, and criminal gangs that were used also for political advantage. So, and so in addition to the political disarray of the country, now you have a terror that is taking place. People are living literally day to day in an atmosphere of terror. So I think this is a very grim picture, but I think maybe Professor FAURIOL will take over and maybe contribute and continue the conversation.
All right, thank you, Dr. NZENGOU-TAYO, over to you, George.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. I'm delighted to participate in this timely discussion about Haiti. My remarks probably will build on some of MARIE-JOSÉ's, as she said, grim sort of opening comments about the situation in Haiti. I will begin by actually narrowly focusing on the factors that appear to frame the hesitancy or simply the absence of a consensus among international actors as to how to respond to Haiti's deepening crises. I see sort of four factors at play. The first one is sort of historical and the one that's most often referenced by sort of general analysis of Haiti's interaction with the international community, particularly since the late 1980s. Such that engagement in Haiti now would in effect be the fourth time in roughly 3 decades, with very few positive outcomes for Haiti itself. I think this also explains in part even the language that has emerged in the current context, which avoids referring to, quote, intervention, a term that's obviously loaded with a frustrating history. Notions of an international response now you hear are sort of phrased in terms of an armed action, a security operations, or words to that effect. The altered vocabulary reflects to some degree also some pushback from Haitian political and civil society actors to the notion of, in effect, of another intervention, particularly from the United States. But even here, there are limitations to the vocabulary that's being used, since it seems to suggest an operation of limited scope, when what Haiti really needs from the international community is support across a broad spectrum of economic, humanitarian, health, governance, institutional real building efforts. So it's a wide spectrum of engagement. The second factor underlying this sort of international hesitation may be operational in character, namely that the current security situation, let alone its accompanying political dynamics, are, I would argue, somewhat different from earlier interventions, the 1994, 2004, let alone the 2010 post-earthquake operation. There are some, I would say, arguably some disputes, but there was at least some level of clarity of purpose in the 1994 intervention, pushing out the military regime and restoring a democratically elected government of Mr. Aristide. And while there's certainly a lot of dispute over the circumstances of the 2004 intervention, at least there was a focus, an enabling of a successor to the Aristide presidency. In the present context, while the interim prime minister, Mr. Ariel Henry, in October of last year at a UN address and requested international assistance, it was sort of a somewhat nebulous as to its exact purpose. In fact, has led, as it turns out, 5 months later, to very little consensus as to how to respond, both to the request, let alone to the crisis. There's no doubt, as we just heard, that the government of Haiti, or what's left of it, faces some serious threats. One being, in some ways, the interim prime minister's own rather shaky legitimacy as the interim leader in the wake of the assassination of the president in July of 2021, combined with a serious threat, which obviously has now made the headlines, which is the acceleration of a widening universe of well-armed gangs and trafficking networks in Haiti. A third factor framing the hesitancy of the international community is in some ways paradoxically the absence of US leadership, which was an overwhelming element in previous international responses. The inference other countries, I think, are drawing from this ambivalent US posture is to respond with what I would describe sort of mostly palliative solutions that are increasingly disconnected from the realities of the streets of Haiti itself. It's been a wave of targeted sanctions, mostly from Canada and the United States. Also, sort of more specialized talk of training for the Haitian National Police, a few deliveries of Canadian armored vehicles, and then more generally, sort of unconvincing encouragements towards Haitian national political dialogue and consensus. Little of it has actually generated results. Some of this US hesitancy is, I think, framed by US domestic politics, where there is a limited appetite for another international commitments of US security capabilities, sort of the quote, boots on the ground kind of issue. There's also, I would argue, a somewhat disjointed US policy focus on the Caribbean basin generally, shaped at times also domestically within the United States by somewhat toxic debate over immigration and border control dynamics, and sort of Haiti gets sort of lost in all of that. The cumulative effects of all of this bring me to the fourth factor of international hesitancy, which is sort of this has morphed into a well-intentioned, if hazy, policy principle, an international community response that is predicated on, quote, a Haitian-led solution to the crisis. This is not an unreasonable principle in that it attempts to recognize the heavy-handedness, particularly of the United States and other actors in tipping the balance of previous Haitian crises. And it is also actually triggered, to Haitian civil society's credit, some serious competing infrastructure and sort of path forwards towards out of the crisis. Most notably, what has become known as the Montana Accord, and the more recent emergence of, in effect, sort of an opposing version, the December the 21st agreement, the latter mostly defining Ariel Henry's own ideas of political transition and an electoral timetable. One of the problems here, obviously, is that there does not appear to be much negotiating room between these two proposals towards a consensus out of the crisis. So to conclude, what happens next? Perhaps somewhat optimistically, I see sort of a possible convergence of three overlapping, if not particularly synchronized, sets of activities. First, essentially an intra-Haiti dynamic centered around variations of the December the 21st agreement, and most notably the machinery that is attempting to set in motion the transition council that has been set up. It is somewhat of a wobbly piece of machinery. It involves a number of actors. It also entails a form of consensus and potential confidence building structure around roundtables and working groups. This takes time. I'm not entirely sure that there is the momentum to actually generate results, but it's there. This universe also includes an organized element, including the Haitian business sector, which happens to be represented as one of the three members of this transition council. And I mention it in part because it actually has the capacity to lobby for Haiti's case internationally, including in Washington and other capitals. This also brings into the fold a few other actors, including the churches, as well as various elements of the country's political sector. Interestingly enough, one limitation right now is that it does not have the endorsement of the competing Montana agreement. A second universe of action may be identified for now as linked to the Caribbean community, to CARICOM, and the aftermath of the recent summit in the Bahamas, which also included the participation of the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, and actually, I think, triggered a lot of expectations of real results. That really did not happen, but it did include measurable CARICOM commitments to engage Haiti's crisis more than what we'd seen in the past. This includes sort of a two-part push directed to go beyond the generalities of the Bahamas meeting convening a meeting of stakeholders, of Haitian stakeholders, as well as CARICOM's participation in some synchronized discussions in Haiti with Haiti's main actors to firm up a plan of action. This is all a bit vague, but it was actually followed up fairly quickly by a visit from the Jamaican Prime Minister, along with others from the rest of CARICOM, including particularly Trinidad and the Bahamas. And that is noteworthy. It is also noteworthy that Jamaica itself had previously announced a willingness to commit some of its own police and security contingents to a possible multinational operation in Haiti. But neither the Bahamas summit nor the visit of the Prime Minister to Haiti have actually sort of pushed much of that concept forward. So finally, there's a third universe of action that is anchored mostly by the diplomacy of the United States, Canada, at the UN, the Organization of American States, environments that have a more global reach, if you will. As the situation in Haiti degenerates into total chaos, the question then remains whether Washington, and I think particularly Canada, can encourage the interim prime minister, Mr. Henry, the constituencies behind the December the 21st agreement, as well as the Montana Accord, others towards a process that actually drives a consensus, builds the capacity of this transition council and the related machinery. So with some optimism, perhaps one can envision these actions converging into an effort which actually will generate results beneficial to Haitians themselves. The problem is none of this is particularly straightforward or easy. The timing is critical. We're not talking about months here. This has to be done over the next several weeks to really generate practical results, or lasting damage to Haiti and the Caribbean region will probably emerge. On this rather sad note, perhaps, let me conclude. Thank you. I look forward to the discussion with the other panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. Just maybe to quickly summarize before we transition to the other panelists, there's some very critical governance issues in Haiti at the moment that relate to transitions of power, if you will. And the regional dynamics are very important, and there is a glaring absence of a strong US role. It would be interesting to hear in Haiti, and hopefully we can have a follow-up seminar on this, what the response would be to such a strong US role in resolving the crisis. But now we're going to hear from another transnational, well, let's say an academic focusing on disaster in the context of Haiti. So Professor Mark Schuller, and also Jacqueline, who writes extensively on Haiti. So I'll just read their bios quickly and give them the opportunity to take the floor and share their own perspective. Mark is Presidential Research Professor of Anthropology and Nonprofit and NGO Studies at Northern Illinois University, and affiliate at the, and excuse me if I don't pronounce this properly, Faculté d'Ethnologie, la Université d'Haïti. Okay, supported by the National Science Foundation Senior and Career Grant, Bellagio Center, and others. Schuller's research on NGOs, globalization, disasters, and gender in Haiti has been published in 50 peer-reviewed articles and book chapters, as well as public media. He's co-authored a number of texts, including Humanities' Last Stand, Confronting Global Catastrophe. He is co-director / co-producer of the documentary Potomitan, Haitian Women, Pillars of the Global Economy, 2009, and he's co-editor of Bergen Books' Catastrophes in Context, a series in Engaged Social Science on disasters. He has won awards, including the Margaret Mead Award and the Anthropology in Media Award, as well as the Haitian Studies Association Award for Excellence. He's active in several solidarity efforts. And our final panelist is Jacqueline Charles, Emmy Award-winning Caribbean correspondent at the Miami Herald, with responsibility for Haiti and the English-speaking Caribbean. She was born in the Turks and Caicos to a Haitian mother and raised by a Cuban-American stepfather in Miami's Overtown neighborhood. And she began her career at I would say an early age, 14 years old, as a Miami Herald intern. After graduating from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, her first overseas assignment, the return of Haitian President Jean-Bertrand Aristide from exile, came shortly after. As Haiti correspondent, she has covered the second return of Aristide and was the first journalist to inform readers of his arrival to the island nation. And she has worked in many places all over the world. Also, winner of several prizes, including being shortlisted for the Pulitzer in 2011 and being included in the 2017 Pulitzer Prize for the Miami Herald's Panama Papers investigations. So all our panelists quite prolific in their fields. We now hand over to Mark, who will share his expertise on disasters, while Jacqueline will speak to the treatment of Haitians at the US border. We can see you, Mark, so you can go ahead when you're ready.
I'm just turning on my 12-minute timer. Can we see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So thank you so much for the invitation. It's an honor to be sharing a panel with such distinguished presenters. It's really important that we're having this conversation. Unfortunately, that we have to keep having this conversation. I want to honor the women today, as it is International Women's Day. When we think about crises and disasters, we do need to think about women and other minority populations. So, current context, I'm going to breeze through this because we've heard so much, but let's start. The end of the term, the presidential term, and we're running out of Parliament. There's no elected leaders, as was said. So a massive deportation begins September 18th of 2021, which was 1 month after a massive earthquake in the south of Haiti. That was barely a month after the assassination of Jovenel Moïse. And that was on top of a gangsterization of civil society. We can talk about some of the proximate and distal causes of people joining gangs. MARIE-JOSÉ talked about some of the demographic pushes, but PhD student, now Dr. James Olivier talked about the nexus between aid and NGOs and armed irregular groups, so what we can call gangs. So the Pays was talked about. It was in addition to called for by political leaders. It was a bottom-up mobilization all over the country. It was on top of the question, where did the money from Petrocaribe go? Petrocaribe was one of the only aid that came to Haiti that went to Haitian government. Most of the aid certainly after the 2010 earthquake, but even before, was sent to non-governmental organizations or NGOs. And I think that's the lane that I was asked to stay in today. I do have a relationship with lots of solidarity movements and Haitian activist groups, but I'm going to talk about aid. So in the middle of this was kicked off 2018 during the World Cup match with Brazil, the end of the gas subsidies. The IMF asked Jovenel Moïse to stopped subsidizing gas, and the price of gas went up 37%. This is on top of what Haitians call a humanitarian occupation. And that word may sound a little bit ungrateful, I've heard it, but it is describing the reality of United Nations troops occupying the country following the coup against RSD in 2004, and continuing through the 2010 earthquake. So the nexus between security and NGOs is quite uncomfortable for some, certainly people that are my colleagues at the State University of Haiti and organizations. So this is a 2015 100th anniversary of the US occupation. People in Haiti call it that the US occupation has not ended. So with or without boots, the occupation is still there was the title of this national conference. Cholera was brought to Haiti by infected troops in a leaky sewage at a base that the United Nations controlled back in 2010 in October. And rather than spend this money, their political capital to fix the problem, they spent 5 years trying to deny the cause. So a campaign of a disinformation campaign, or trying to evade responsibility. And that's not to also not to mention the hundreds of cases of sexual assault, including what they call MINUSTA babies. So cholera, this is a picture of the State University of Haiti, where I teach, across from the National Mall. This is an acrostic poem that says cholera is the red on the red letters going down. It's a conspiracy of NGOs in the state to eliminate the rest of Haitians that didn't die on January 12th. So this is an example of some popular perceptions. And the aid that came after the 2010 earthquake was so visible and so big. Haiti made front page news for weeks. And so there's a big campaign about where did the money go? And I was participating in meetings in Washington and other solidarity efforts. And if the question was only heard as where did the money go, you had some an article published in 2015, ProPublica that said that the Red Cross, for example, the US Red Cross, raised $500 million and built 6 homes. A little more nuanced than that, that their job was not to build homes, but still, this, for the first time, NGOs became the subject of mass, not just journalist coverage. Jackie Charles, who's going to speak next, has always been great on covering the situation in Haiti, but it started to make mainstream coverage, like what is going on with NGOs. They were thought of as the magic bullet that can take care of every problem that existed. So pardon me, this image, I just showed this when talking to NGOs about this is what privatization looked like when you have a government that doesn't have the ability to control, and you have private entities like NGOs install latrines, but nobody, then they left. So no one can compel them to fix the problem. And so that was basically leaving a problem for the local authorities to meet. So this is a background of what people call Republic of NGOs. They are unelected. They form a parallel state. They have reporting structures. They have they basically become sovereign countries within a country. In places like Haiti, where they talk about cutting the cake, who gets what part of Haiti in terms of USAID contracts for food aid or other sorts of projects. So they in many ways do function like a parallel state. And in direct consequence, by offering higher salaries, even if they're short contracts, it contributes directly to a brain drain of the public sector. Qualified, dedicated civil servants leave their posts to work for NGOs. So who are they accountable to? The answer to that is not the people. The picture that I just showed talked about that they're not accountable to the government of Haiti. They're not, so horizontally or downward, they're accountable to their donors and only their donors. And so that makes part of the problem. We need to look at the reward structure. So the reward structure, the USAID, the Canadian government, the French government, the European Union, donor organizations basically put in place a reward structure that encourages top-heavy accountability measures that take money towards places like Haiti, and then they called it tide aid. 93 cents per the dollar was sent to the United States. It's a common statistic. It repeated. This reward structure fosters competition between NGOs over limited contracts, and coordination was not happening. There was a couple instances of at the time the Spanish government funded the coordination of the WASH sector, water and sanitation, and they funded the coordination of the Office of NGO Coordination, UCAONG. But by and large, Bill Clinton and other donors were saying, yeah, we know we have a weak state, and we know we need to do better coordination, but no one was willing to fund that. Coordination requires staff, it requires computers, it requires motorcycles, it requires gas for those motorcycles. If we're serious about this, then we need to consider how that's done. So people in Haiti were talking about a new minimum standards for humanitarian aid. Lots of great promises were made. On the ground, what are people feeling? They don't feel that. So this is a website, HaitiResponse.org/pledge, to read the text of what are the pledge, the new minimum standards. Basically, stop disaster porn, be more specific about your appeal, where, who are you working with, etc. So you can click there, get real specific about asking for greater accountability from NGOs. So this is at the place I teach, the Faculté d'Origine. This is Haitian Creole for down with all NGOs. Again, not nuanced, but this is expressing popular resentment towards the NGO sector, certainly after the earthquake. This is a picture of one of the authors of a text. His life work was on NGOs. He was assassinated minutes before the earthquake on January 12, 2010 with him. So the book that I based this on was research after the earthquake with students from the State University of Haiti and York College, where Dr. Henke used to be as well, Haitian American. So quickly, $16 billion of promised aid. I want to ask the question, instead of just where did the money go, but what did the money do? So the money did stuff. And so what did it do? It created new leaders, people that received aid, likely the people that are members of a church that are affiliated with a mission, or the one person in town that speaks English, or unfortunately, people that present themselves as leaders because they're quote unquote gangs. Disrupted solidarity networks. Solidarity is what saved people in Haiti throughout history, certainly after the earthquake. Created division. So if some people want everyone gets aid, that creates a division. It creates competition, that creates jealousy. It demobilizes the population. So popular organizations, or OPs, used to be about making demands on the state to do its job. And so after the earthquake in particular, these organizations become beneficiaries or mini-me's of the NGOs. They're depoliticized. It becomes about charity and not human rights. So it's depoliticized. It becomes the Republic of NGOs, as I said. It's aid split up families very quickly. If you got the same bag of beans and rice, if you're a family of 2 or 8, most families decided to create 2 new families with a 17-year-old woman as a head of household for the first time. And it also perversely increased violence against women. So if you create aid policies that quote unquote target women, and men are the ones making decisions, and this is all a top-down process, aid, so violence against women was 10 times greater in the camps as outside of the camps after 2010. This is if you're interested, Local Report in the Americas, I co-edited with Mamira Dugé-Prosper. Almost all the authors, in fact, all but us, are Haitian scholars and activists in Haiti. So you can take a read. It's still relevant, unfortunately, today. This was published in early 2021. So the current research that I'm doing, just some quick conclusions of this research. So needs do change from where, who, what, over time. Leaders change. So you gotta be cautious. 94.4% of people share what they have with their neighbors. So we can't think of it as a failure. We can't think of Haiti as a crisis. We have to say, and civil society and people are saving each other. People are creating social capital that is worth investing in. Almost 3 in 4 report sharing collective activities in their communities. People trust their neighbors less and less, so they believe that problems can be solved. And their highest confidence in NGOs. and then the state, but then local authorities. So 8 field sites across the south of Haiti, 2016 to today. It's a very big and long research project. There's lots of variation. I am over time, so just quickly, I'm going to mention that the 8 NGOs and activist NGOs are a lot alike. They do the similar things. If you think of NGOs as a verb and not a noun, I think it's more useful. We really do need to be thinking about what solidarity is and what it means in today's context, where gasoline is costing $30 a gallon, and that means that literally water is not being delivered outside of Port-au-Prince. Humanitarian sites of yesterday are today's shantytowns. People are unaware of the roles. State and local authorities' responses are different. People hold them responsible. That even though NGOs don't do the work, people in Haiti do hold their local people responsible. So people are doing what they can. They got ashamed. I think the end of the story needs to be, we need to be really specific that Haitian people need to be the center of the story, and not folks that sit there that say they represent them. This is an example of a teach-in that we did at a camp at this public university. This is at Caradip camp and the University of the 2010 earthquake. These are my research team that I just want to, this is a very, very big project. I just want to make sure that I acknowledge that I'm one of a very, very large team and very honored to be part of it. So thank you all for paying attention and for your questions in advance. And I'm really interested to hear Jackie, Charles. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this discussion. I'm going to talk about migration, but just to add a little bit more context to what is going on today, because I've already just written 2 stories. The situation has really become very critical. Doctors Without Borders, which is a medical charity, which just 2 weeks ago warned that the level of violence was going to affect its ability to provide service. They just announced that they are temporarily closing their hospital in Cité Soleil. The reason why that's important is because it's the largest slum. It's where they confirmed the resurgence of cholera last year after deadly gang clashes basically left people locked in. All of this, of course, is happening today as the Inter-American Human Rights Commission was hearing testimony from Haitian human rights activists about how gangs are increasingly using sexual violence, rape, as a weapon, and children as young as 3 years old. The reports that I've just gotten in the last week is that, in neighborhoods where you didn't have the presence of gangs, like a farming community in the hills of Port-au-Prince, they are now there. They are now invading into people's homes. They are, raping, they're kidnapping. The situation is becoming increasingly intolerable. So even people who have a particular position are now sort of sending out the SOS. And I give you all of that because that is the context in which deportations, repatriations are still happening. Just to give you some background, according to the International Organization of Migration, between January and December of last year, there were 154,330 deportations. That was just from the Dominican Republic. And I recently, in January, I was on the border. Those deportations, they continue. They're by the hundreds. They happen at all hours of the day. The Dominicans are violating their own agreements with the Haitians in terms of during what time periods they will deport people. Children are sent over in their school uniforms. People were picked up while they were just doing everyday thing, whether coming from work or purchasing something, at the grocery store. You see this at the same time. According to IOM, the United States returned 15,065 people, and that's just for last year, and it was mostly people who are repatriated by boat, because the policy in the U.S. still is that if you are picked up at sea, you will be sent back to Haiti, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Meanwhile, coming from Cuba, they had the next highest number, which was about 3,001, followed by the Bahamas with 2,563, and the Turks and Caicos at 1,774. just to point out, both the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos this year are reporting that they expect for their Haitian numbers to increase. Their position is basically that, you know, we're small islands, we can't. But when you hear the rhetoric, it's very much an anti-immigration, anti-Haitian rhetoric. That's happening. George mentioned the CARICOM meeting. I was at the CARICOM meeting in the Bahamas, and it was quite interesting because everybody had a lot of hope in CARICOM in terms of it would take some sort of position, CARICOM in both Canada, in terms of what the next steps would be in terms of the security in the country. The Haitian police force is roughly 9,000 ready to go, active. And in the last couple of weeks, police officers have been killed. They've been abandoning posts, and they're trying to get out of the country vis-a-vis this Biden humanitarian parole program, which I'll mention in a minute. And so when you imagine you have that kind of a situation with a security force and people are increasingly feeling vulnerable, people have sort of been looking to say, okay, what sort of help, where is this help going to come from? But interesting enough is that, you know, during the press conference, the Bahamian Prime Minister, Philip Davies, who's the chair of CARICOM, basically said, okay, at this moment, we're not going to focus on boots on the ground. We're going to focus on strengthening the Haitian National Police. That was very much the same line that Canada concluded, you know, during this meeting. But then less than 48 hours later, he gives a national address to the Bahamian population, and he frames the CARICOM decision not in terms of assisting Haiti, but in terms of the migration crisis, the Haitian migration crisis in the Bahamas. So once again, Haitians were villainized, and they were used. What was happening was not, you know, promoted in the same way that was promoted to the international community, but it became sort of this national issue in terms of we took these steps in order to stop the Haitians from coming or to deal with the Haitians. The other thing that was interesting is that with the delegation that Prime Minister Andrew Holness led to Haiti, you know, last week, you had presence of a Trinidadian official and a Bahamians. But interesting enough, the Bahamians, they sent their Minister of Immigration and they sent their Director of Immigration. So even for them, that visit was framed in the context of, you know, of the issue of migration. And so, you know, and during his address, you know, the Prime Minister of Bahamas really pushed the notion that during last year's Summit of the Americas, you know, the Bahamas did not sign on to this migration agreement that the Biden administration was pushing. And at the same time, they basically told the UN Rapporteur on Human Rights that, no, we're not going to stop, you know, deportations to Haiti. We're going to continue to do deportations to Haiti. So that's the dynamic in which, you know, Haiti finds itself, that there's the internal crisis that's happening in the country, but externally, in terms of the issue of migration, what they are finding is the doors are closed. According to IOM, in many instances, these repatriated migrants, they include unaccompanied and separated children, as well as pregnant and nursing women. And when they arrive back into Haiti, they arrive in highly vulnerable states. We just had an incident yesterday, in fact, that there was a boat that was picked up in Bahamian waters with 145 Haitian migrants on board. And the adults on board that boat, when the Coast Guard tried to stop them, they basically threatened to throw the kids overboard. And so the Coast Guard had to sort of let the boat go as far as it could before they were children are increasingly finding themselves in a vulnerable state. I think the biggest thing, we remember Del Rio, which happened, and there were about 15,000 Haitian, migrants, and most of them were Haitians. And I went to Del Rio, and it happened, you know, soon after the August 14th, you know, earthquake. And so you're looking at this, and what a lot of journalists were missing was that the people who were gathering in Del Rio were not necessarily Haitians coming from Haiti. Haitians who are trying not to go back to Haiti. These were Haitians who had been in Chile, as well as Brazil, which was probably the other big tragedy after the 2010 earthquake, when these billions of dollars in aid, as Mark mentioned, when they did not materialize, people started to lose hope. And then they started to look to other places to migrate, and they chose to go to Latin America, to countries that really did not have a Haitian presence. And at the same time, under late President Jovenel Moise, he basically opened the floodgates for this, because they were giving away passports like, like it was candy. So you would go to the airport and you would just see people like lining up, just basically trying to, to get out of that country. And so during the COVID pandemic, things became very difficult, especially for migrants who were in these countries who did not have legal papers or documents to be there. A lot of them were from Chile, or they were having difficulty finding work, because while they were there, they were still needing to send money back home to their families. So a lot of them, they made this 11-country trek. It's a very dangerous trek that they make through the Darien Gap. A lot of people died. We don't even know how many people have died. The women are raped, you're subjected to another kind of violence. And did you arrive at the border, first the Guatemala-Mexico border in Tapachula. And then when you're there, the Mexicans are basically trying to keep you in Tapachula, because if you apply for asylum in Mexico, you have to stay in that state where you apply for asylum. And so, and again, Mexico is not a very Black friendly or Haitian friendly place. So they often find themselves, again, how do I eat? How do I survive? So they try to make the trek even further up to the border, to sort of Tijuana or Reynosa or somewhere else along the US southern border. And so what you have seen there is what happened with Del Rio, where people just sort of pushed their way through. Then you had, all of these migrants that were under there, and then you're in the US government was sort of trying to respond and figure out how to respond. Till this day, I cannot tell you, what were the rules that they used to say who was put on a plane and sent back to Haiti, who was released. You would see a family, you would see kids, you would say, okay, but then you would see somebody else and they were single, or you would see somebody who was pregnant, or you would hear from NGOs on the ground in Haiti that there were, so many children or so many pregnant women or families who were returned on these deportation flights. Bringing it forward, on January 5th, the Biden administration basically announced its new humanitarian parole program for 4 countries. Those 4 countries are Haiti, Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. In this group, the only one that really sort of, you could say hits pay dirt with this is that the Cuban migrants, because of the Cuban Adjustment Act, after being here for 1 year, 1 day, they can adjust their status and they can, be legal, US residents. Everybody else, unless you are already part of an application process, meaning that you were under family reunification where somebody filed for you, you were approved, or you have the ability to get your US legal status under some other program, you're coming here, and a question, that I've been asking is, what is the future in that? Somebody who's here, this is a 2-year program. If this administration is not elected, or another administration comes in and they do away with it, what do you do with those people? Do you say program is over and now you have to go back and go back to Haiti? This is level of uncertainty which we saw during the Trump administration with their decisions like TPS. When Trump decided he wanted to get rid of temporary protected status, there was a lot of rumors running through the Haitian community, and people just basically uprooted their lives and they to flee to Canada, because they were scared of basically being in the United States and being undocumented. So, people are looking at this program today, but this program has also had, negative repercussions, one of which is with the Haitian National Police. The numbers have been growing in terms of police officers who are applying to get out of that country, so much so that the Immigration Office had to create a separate bureau just for police officers to go to apply. And so the question is that at the end of the day, what kind of security force are you going to be, left with as a result of this domestic policy to deal with its own migration crisis? And finally, I'll just say, in terms of the treatment, there's, when you talk to immigration, activists and advocates, as well as in the Haitian community, they will tell you that Haitians, and Black migrants have always received disparate treatment in terms of US immigration law. I mentioned to you, for instance, the Cuban Adjustment Act. which basically says a year and a day. No other migrants, they have that opportunity. Today, there's also this sort of a wet foot, dry foot policy that's in place. Years ago, was that if you were Cuban and you made it to land, you were basically allowed to stay. Everybody else, if you were caught at sea, you were returned. What we've seen today, it's not really that clear, but what we have seen is that when Haitians, they make it to US soil, they are processed in, they get a chance to say, I want to put in for asylum request, but if they are picked up at sea, they are immediately returned. And only those who know US immigration law and raise their hands and say, hey, I have credible fear, are actually given those credible fear interviews. We still do not know today how many people are actually who get in, are processed in, are allowed in, or paroled in. The Haitian migrants that arrive, they're basically sent out to detention centers across the United States where there aren't, Creole speakers. So there's a language barrier in terms of that. They may not even have access to attorneys because of where they've been sent. So there's a lot of disparity that we're seeing. And of course, there was that famous photo that everybody saw, what happened, in the Rio Grande. I actually happened to have been in the river that day, but I was on a different end, of that river. I mean, look, whether I come into to MIA with my passport, or you're trying to cross the ground, when you meet these customs and border patrols, not all of them are the same, but a lot of times they're very aggressive. And when you were there in Del Rio, you did get the sense that it was about keeping people out, not having people cross over into the camps. And I think, at the end of the day, there was the report that was done. There was a lot of disappointment in the community about that, but it was a reminder of the kind of treatment that Haitian migrants have received from the time that, the first documented boat to South Florida to the United States was documented, which was, 12/12/1972, 51 years ago this December. That was when the first boat of Haitian migrants arrived. And there has been this disparate treatment in terms of how Haitian migrants are received in the US versus, other migrants, and also how Haitian migrants are received here versus, say, when they cross over into Canada. And I'll end it there.
All right, thanks so much, Jackie. So the floor is open for questions. You will have the opportunity to raise your hand and voice the question if you so desire, but you can post in the chat. So whilst persons prepare themselves, just a quick summary of the interventions from Mark and Jackie. Gangsterization, a new word for me. NGOs becoming parallel states and not necessarily improving the situation that they find in Haiti, sometimes perhaps making it worse. And disparity in treatment of Haitian nationals as opposed to other nationals from the region when they're trying to seek a better life elsewhere, not just in the US, but also in other parts of the Americas, so Brazil and Chile. So the floor is open. If anyone has questions, you can post in the chat or raise your hand and we'll unmute you. If you have a specific speaker that you'd like to address your question to, then please identify the person. Okay, so Alana has a question. How does the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine contrast with that of Haiti in terms of the response from the global north, migration support and financing? That's one question. And then Jan Boudreau, with the rapid deterioration of the situation in Haiti, can CARICOM support to the PNH still work? What are the best options or options? So who wants to take a stab at either of those? Okay, go ahead, George. I'm assuming it's question 2 or.
Maybe I can comment a little bit on the second question, briefly, the CARICOM support for the Haitian National Police, as Jackie and others have just mentioned. The problem now, in fact, has reached a point where it's unclear frankly, what CARICOM can really do. There is a force which is no longer what it should be. It is one that is also under, shall we say, political duress. Its morale is frankly broken. It doesn't mean that there are viable elements within. There are, but it's really not an effective police force as it is now. And to some degree, that's why I mentioned in my opening remarks, there's only so much in effect that CARICOM can do. The Jamaican offer is certainly a welcome one, but it's clearly has to be part of a larger effort that in effect not only deals with security, but actually addresses a series of other issues, economic, sanitary, health issues, and ultimately, I think the question, which I think maybe Mark implied also in some of his comments, which is and MARIE-JOSÉ, which is what is the driving force that is generating so much, in effect, growth, if you will, of gangs. So these issues are not going to be resolved by simply having more training for a already watered down Haitian National Police capability. The problem, however, having said that, is that unless something is done fairly quickly, the situation is only going to completely unravel. And you end up with sort of a professional universe, a universe of, in effect, professional individuals who see no future beyond gang warfare and trafficking. One last issue, the United States plays an important role in all of this, not only in terms of, I would argue, energizing, if you will, an international response to Haiti, but also in some ways addressing either the immigration issue a little more constructively, as Jackie just mentioned. Another issue is, which has also been publicized by a recent UN report in this regard, which is a lot of the weaponry that ultimately is being utilized by gangs. It's a problem in Haiti, but it's all frankly a problem throughout the region, comes from, guess where, in the United States. Either legally or through trafficking channels. So those are the kinds of issues which I think need to be part of the discussion. I'm encouraged of seeing CARICOM, if you will, a part of this process, but on its own, it cannot ultimately be enough.
Let me also add, lately I've been hearing a lot of people talk about the need to pay the Haitian police, more, right? It's a very first world construct, right? But I think that the crisis is beyond there. It's like, think about it. If you've ever left a job, maybe before you finally left, you were asking for a raise, and then you become so frustrated that by the time it doesn't even matter how much money they give you, you're out. And I think that is where we've arrived with this police force. Yes, they definitely need to be paid more. The reality is that the U.S. government provides a lot of the funding for the Haitian police. The Haitian state, which barely has $2 billion of a budget, cannot pay its own security force. So for those who say, well, what about a Haitian army? You can't even pay for your Haitian police. There's an analysis that's done by Herald, who's a well-respected Haitian economist, and shows that over the years, while they've been recruiting additional police officers, neither the Haitian state nor the international community led by the U.S. actually increased the percentage of their budget toward that. And then there's a human element. Today, you have police officers from rank and file to even leaders inside the force who cannot live in their own homes. They are sleeping in police stations because their homes are surrounded by gangs. I mean, you imagine that if you have to go to work every day, you don't have, a good night's sleep, or you're just a work-life balance, as a lot of the younger people say today. You're not having that. I think it's very difficult. And I think that people are not sort of really realizing that, yes, you have a force that is ill-equipped, underpaid, under-resourced. It's now being targeted by gangs. On top of it, yes, we've got corruption issues. We need the vetting, but there's this human element in terms of the conditions under which they are being asked to work. And those conditions are increasingly becoming impossible for them, and sense of duty is no longer cutting it.
When we talk about security, we also need to talk about other elements. So the repressive force of a police or an army, like that is an important part of the conversation, and why the police feel the need to protest or let their poor working conditions, the lack of legitimacy they see the government is having is an important part of the conversation. But there are reconciliation efforts happening in Cité Soleil, in Bel Air. There are organizations trying to talk through the issues of why people are doing this in the first place. And so if people don't have a faith, that if people don't believe that the government is going to be taking care of their needs, if they don't have faith in the system that is working, if they see the hypocrisy of the drug trade and the drug war of the United States, if they see the double standard, they're gonna not see any alternatives to this. And so offering long-term stability in terms of job security, in terms of having people's needs met should be a part of any conversation about security. And I know this is not something that people would disagree with. I just want to remind folks, in addition to the top-down, a bottom-up approach needs to be done right now, and is happening in some instances.
Before we tackle any other questions, yes, you can make your intervention now.
But
and then-
I would like to add to what has been said. There are two things. For example, in terms of police, the population of Haiti is said to be around 11 million, and the police force is basically concentrated in Port-au-Prince, the bigger number in Port-au-Prince, and you don't even have enough policemen compared to other countries where you have a large number of police per
The ratio.
the ratio between police and population. In Haiti, the number of police, the ratio is really ridiculous in terms of infinitesimal. The number is not there. Second thing, I remember when under the Preval government, when the prime minister came here, Haitian prime minister came here, and he said that the police is not compared to the armament, the weapon. The police is not armed in order to face the weapons that the guns have. And this was long before the current situation. Because in addition, the irony of the United States is that the Haitian government cannot import arms. However, a lot of arms are entering, heavy weapons, weapons of arms, of war, are entering the country illegally. Where do those arms are coming from? As has been said already, from the US. So if the US was really serious about helping Haiti, don't you think that they would do something to prevent the smuggling of arms? This is one point. And this is something that has been discussed several times in meetings. I remember the presidential, I think it was President Preval, so imagine it was before 2010, coming here and talking with, and the prime minister of the time, the Jamaican prime minister, both of them saying that both Jamaica and Haiti do not manufacture arms. However, they have to face a lot of weapons that are smuggled illegally. So those weapons are coming from the US, and we are told that the US cannot do anything to control smuggling. So these are the two ironies and disparities of what is said by our friends and what the reality is on the ground.
Okay. All right.
Let me just say that 50% of the illegal gun trafficking investigations from the United States today are of arms that are happening, that are floating in the Caribbean. We just recently did a story on this a couple of months ago. And we did raise this question, and what we've been told by Homeland Security investigations is that, yes, when you think of the number of containers that are coming out of ports, in particular Miami, that they can't check every container. In terms of Haiti, when you see the way that the shipments are done, and in Jamaica we do barrels, but in Haiti, they consolidate and they do the used closing and things like that. So, but what they've said is that when they operate on tips, when they receive a tip, they will look into it. And it was pretty scary a couple of months ago when they had a press conference and they showed us some of the guns that were headed to Haiti that they managed to to seize. I mean, these are weapons of mass destruction. And the professor is right that there is a U.S. arms embargo where the Haitian state, including the police, the U.S. cannot sell them arms, and they cannot purchase arms that easily, even from other countries. So you're telling them you need to fight this war, but at the same time, they don't have the ability to easily get the weapons that they need to counter the guys that have it.
Okay, interesting. I was not aware of this dimension at all, in terms of the deficit with relation to equipment and being able to fight at a level that is meeting the force that the gangs themselves hold or have. So thanks for sharing that. I did want us to try to address Alana's question. Alana is one of our MSc students. She asked about the comparison between Ukraine and Haiti and a global North response. So if anybody feels inclined to tackle that. But we also have another question from, I'm wondering if that's Prof. Williams. It says, are we to assume from this evening's presentation, there are no viable options for Haiti? Because we've kind of painted a grim picture. Solutions thus far haven't worked. So if there are any options, what are the options? I'm trying to tie that with Alana's question.
Well, I think that we don't need to comment much on the disparity of treatment. It is so obvious. As I usually say, in Haiti is a petit misogado. I don't know if Mark and Jacqueline.
It's an orphan. It's a child without a guardian, without a guardian angel.
Yes, I always thought that about Haiti is that we never have someone to speak. I mean, someone who is supposed to speak in terms of government to take our case. But in the case of Ukraine, it is so obvious that you have a disparity, that the migration of the Ukrainian, when the Ukrainian moved towards the other European countries, have you ever heard a country saying, no, we don't want them? And at the same time, when the Afghans were trying to go to flee through Europe, that's the same countries, maybe it is not the same countries, but some European countries blocked the Afghans and prevented them of fleeing a country where they were risking their lives. So I think that there is nothing to say about the disparity of treatment. The other thing I would say in terms of positive, it is very difficult to have, we are in an emergency situation, and all the discussions that I've heard personally are surrounding in terms of forceful response to the gun. And personally, I don't think that it will work because if you want to have a forceful response, you will end up with a kind of humanitarian crisis, genocide or crime, this kind of thing. I would rather think that, and I think Mark mentioned that, in terms of the kind of reconciliation efforts that you have. And personally, I would think that maybe the diaspora could help through the regional associations that exist in the diaspora. so that the diaspora would go in their own region and have those kind of consultation, and maybe they would be able to convince, because I don't think that a violent response to the violence is going to have to bring any solution. And I recognize the fact that we have reached a level of violence, of cruelty, I think, a cruelty of the gang members. And it is very difficult to talk about negotiation in that kind of circumstances. But if really we want to have a long-term solution, we need to have people sitting at the table and discussing. One of the problems that we have currently is the lack of trust in people. You have people on the ground that are trying to do, because you have organization, and maybe this could be a joint effort between the diaspora and the organization. For example, there is a PromoDev, a group of agronomists that are trying to find a solution. They are offering, and in spite of everything, the agronomists are on the ground, and they are all over the place in the country. So that if, for example, diaspora organization, regional organization could liaise with those agronomists that are on the ground, or the people that are on the ground, maybe there would be a possibility. But we have to reconstruct the state. We have to reestablish confidence. There is so much to do that sometimes, people could feel overwhelmed by what is needed.
Building trust,
Yes.
reconstructing the state, and drawing on diaspora connections and networks in order to meet community needs. George, you had a comment?
Well, let me just maybe build on the comments we just heard, and the question that the conversation suggests to one of the viewers here is that there's really no viable options left to Haiti. My sense that's really not the case. I think with the discussion seems to underscore the fact that if you only think of the solution in sort of security terms, this is not going to be particularly viable. If we think of the solution, I would phrase it differently. The initial framework of the solution has to be Haitian. And there are, to me, several different pieces on the table. Some of them have been mentioned by Mark and Marie-Josée just a moment ago, which are at the local sort of community level. They're well-intentioned. The problem is they're sort of mosaics of initiatives. The problem is that those initiatives are, I think, in some ways, have an inability to graduate to a broader impact, in part because, for better or for worse, there's this sort of political structure or remnants of it that's still sitting there, including the interim government, that is, in fact, the connection to the governments in the international community. So that has to be somehow addressed. And to me, part of the reason why I mentioned in my opening remarks that there is, in fact, a U.S. role, it just seems to be there and waiting, is not to tip the balance in one direction or another, but actually encourage this kinds of backdrop political discussion whereby you end up with, in effect, a broader consensus that to some degree exists either within the sort of the Montana group or the December the 21st. A correlation of all of these put together, to me, sounds at least more reasonable to then be able to energize the other kinds of initiatives, particularly at the local level, as well as provide some degree of maybe limited credibility in the eyes of many Haitians that presently does not exist, and also feeds a little bit into the comment that was made about mistrust, which I agree. There's a complete mistrust among various actors in Haiti. That issue needs to be really addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. We have maybe to follow up on that, because I think we've addressed one of Signeta's question, but she asked, or he asked, should we be looking away from the US and possibly towards other states in Africa, for example. So if we abandon US intervention, what other international players should we be looking at to help resolve the situation in Haiti?
I mean, I think that's the issue today. It's the fact that the United States has for so long been the elephant in the room and said, you know, Haiti's in our backyard. And so the US today, as George pointed out in his opening, you know, statements, you know, for reasons historical and a number of others, you know, is reluctant to get involved beyond what it's doing right now. And as a result, it's been asking other countries to carry this water for it. And what it's finding, it's no. You know, Canada, it penned a resolution before the UN Security Council. One can't imagine that the US did that without having some assurance that Canada would have done it. There was a feeling they would, and at some point they said no. If we recall what happened in 2004, CARICOM under Prime Minister PJ Patterson at the time took a very much a leadership role in the Haiti crisis. It was, you know, a similar but not as bad as the current crisis today. And then the United States came in at the 11th hour and big-footed CARICOM out and took over, and that created a very sort of, you know, poor taste in CARICOM's mouth that I can't believe is not also as a result of what we've seen here. What one can argue has been a CARICOM in action. I mean, even before President Jovenel Moïse was assassinated, CARICOM was talking about playing a mediation role in this Haiti crisis. And that trip that they talked about years ago finally just happened, and it wasn't a bunch of leaders. It was, you know, Prime Minister Holness, you know, who did that because of his own you know, leadership that he wanted to take in it. So I think that that's the issue, is that they've been looking for other people, and others are not raising their hands to do this. There is also, George, I would probably add to you that there's probably a fifth reason, and it was hit on, you know, the median age being 24, that, you know, what's happening in Haiti is not child's play, and a lot of people with the guns are children. And so people are thinking about their own domestic implications in this, that you go there, and if you're in a shoot to kill mode or something like that happen, what is, you know, in the media, myself and others, you know, what is that going to do for, you know, in terms of your domestic reaction, you know, at home? But I think at this point, somebody needs to do something. I think the UN report stated very clearly that if the situation in Haiti continues to destabilize, it is going to become a regional problem, and that you will basically run out of options, and you may end up with the option that everybody seems or say that they want to avoid, which is, you know, another UN peacekeeping mission where it's so big and so grand that you really can't direct it in any sort of way. And then it becomes this sort of a short-term band-aid solution, and then we're right back to, you know, to where we started.
I see heads nodding in agreement. So we're saying that the US has to take up its responsibility based on the politics that it has played in the region. Is that what we're saying? Yes.
Haiti didn't get here by itself. And I think that there are countries that have played different roles over time. And that I think there needs to be a recognition of that. I think one of the things that all of us can agree that we have not seen is any sort of real assessment by any governments in terms of where they went wrong or what they did or didn't do. It's been sort of a throw the baby out with the bathwater sort of you know, attitude, but well, this didn't work. No, let's do the analysis and let's look. But this is a country that's less than 2 hours from the US, and it's always played a role, whether people want to admit it or not.
I mean, in the China did threaten to pull its funding for the United Nations over Haiti's recognition of Taiwan, and you know there was an opportunity for leverage. One of the reasons why we're in this situation is the United States has systematically underfunded the government of Haiti by funding this parallel state, these NGOs. And another reason why Haiti finds itself isolated is that under Trump, President Moïse destroyed the relationship that Haiti had with Venezuela since 1815, when Pétion rescued the Latin American liberator, armed and clothed, fed, and funded the Bolivar to return. And the Venezuela had, just like Haiti did with Cuba, after the Cuban Revolution, Haiti played a role in isolating the United States's current enemy du jour in the Organization of American States. And this kind of geopolitics has implications for CARICOM. Jackie's point about like the leadership that Patterson played in 2004 is absolutely important. If there was a regional meeting and just sort of say, whatever's happening, we're going to recognize the Haitian solution. I mean, it is imperfect, but there is a Montana Accord. There is an attempt at reclaiming sovereignty. And of course, it's not perfect. It can't be perfect. What right now it is what is on the table. And until the United States gets on the board and saying, we're going to, recognize what Haitian people want, you have a state of war with itself. The Haitian government was not elected. I mean, there's all kinds of evidence that the current interim PM was implicated in the assassination attempt, and every people in Haiti.
I have not seen that in any of my investigation. Let me just go on the record.
Okay, so you probably read Sieper's report from not Mark, but the investigation by Jake Johnston about there's been people that have talked. There's the phone records about phone calls that were made the night of the 7th. So regardless of whether or not there is actual smoking gun evidence proof, the fact that people in Haiti are talking about this means that regardless, people don't have it in the sense that they don't trust their leadership. And without the United States' support, the PHTK regime would not be as powerful as it was, and in part because it was a geopolitics to isolate Haiti from the other regional hegemon or potential hegemon of Venezuela. But the CARICOM can decide to not play along, and to if there is a meeting of leaders that the CARICOM would insist, like, who's the elected leadership of Haiti? CARICOM could organize a delegation of civil society organizations that says, we're going to be meeting with our counterparts in Haiti and to discuss together what solidarity means. That South-South approach may be the only thing that's available right now, but there is some leverage regarding China that is potentially, obviously complicated, but potentially some leverage to force the United States to do a little more. But until you have actual conversations that are happening in the region, you're not going to see any kind of change.
Let me just say, I mean, one of the equations that's missing out of here is just in terms of the average Haitian. The average Haitian on the ground, they increasingly don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in either this Montana group or the government. They basically feel that nobody's been looking out for us. We're in this alone. I think that we talked about the mistrust that exists in Haitian society, but there's also the sort of the class issue. The Munsayo, those people. And I think that this is a huge disconnect, and because of this disconnect, this is where leaders, regardless of who they are, that they have basically been unable to sort of connect with this population. Yes, these gangs have guns because they've had access to it and whatever, but when you also talk to these guys, what you realize is that there's real rage there. The inequality that has existed in this country, that I fear that it's starting to come to fruition. That today, the gangs are no longer just in the slums. They are in the hills where the mentions are. They're everywhere. They're now saying this country is mine and I'm going to take it over. And I think that that's what also adds to the complications of all of this. That there needs to be there's an immediate, but then there is this long-term work that we have to do, that we have to address in Haitian society. Otherwise, we're inching closer and closer to some sort of a civil war. And I fear what the outcome of that is going to be.
Super important. And also, people outside of Port-au-Prince are, they have an opportunity. If you think about the centralization, what made the Republic of Port-au-Prince so powerful was the 1915 U.S. occupation, followed by Duvalier and the support that they had from the United States for the Tonto Macoutes. If you have an opportunity now to get aid out of Port-au-Prince and send it directly to the regional cities, that is one way to lessen the power of the gangs to control any kind of resources. You look at where the gangs were popping up, they were strategic locations because they were where commerce was happening, where lines of transport were to get out of Port-au-Prince. So this is one opportunity now to correct a failure in foreign policy towards Haiti, or development policy in particular.
Okay.
I was going to say something, but I think the conversation went shifted. And so I wanted to come back to the idea, what was said about trust, mistrust, and to add, and also one of the weaknesses of the Accord of Montana, and I think that Jacqueline pointed out to it, but I would add another thing that is missing from that accord. The accord was purely political. It means that the political group came to negotiate in terms of their power and their share of kind of influence, area of influence. However, at no point there was a discussion about reconstructing the state and reconstructing the economy. And for example, when the December agreement, they invited the business sector, but the business sector was very reluctant. Apparently they say yes, but as they say sometimes in French, walking backward, saying yes, but walking backward. You know, so that you have this situation. I remember discussing with a Haitian scholar who is based in Puerto Rico, Paul Latortue, and I was discussing with him about the fact that comparing the Dominican Republic to Haiti. And he said to me something that made me think a lot. He said that when the Dominican got rid of Trujillo, instead of going, each party its way, they sat together and they make an agreement with the economic groups. And they agreed on an economic path. And this was a core agreement, economic agreement, so that whatever party would come in power, there is some kind of basic core economic element that would not be touched by ideology. And in Haiti, I've never seen any political party coming with a viable, sensible, economic, realistic economic vision. They are talking about power. They want to share power. They want to grab power. They want to extract whatever resources come from the state for their profit, but at no point they associate politics and economic development. And this is, I think, one of the weaknesses of the Montana Accord. And this is why when Jacqueline says about Moon-Sayo, it refers to the political class in addition to the economic. I think that now in Haiti, the person, just the fact that you have an employment, you are working and you receive a salary, that puts you among the privileged. Even if it is a minimum wage, but the fact that you have a steady employment and you receive a monthly salary, you are considered as a privilege and you are considered as an enemy by those who don't have that. Okay, so this is a situation really where it is getting worse and worse in terms of the gap. Something that shocked me and is that someone like me, for example, okay, so genetically, physiologically, there is no doubt about it. But the fact that I'm educated, I may be addressed as blanc in Haiti. And blanc not in the sense of color, but in terms of foreigner. So meaning that I was born in Haiti, I was raised in Haiti, But because my condition is better than the condition of the masses considered me as a foreigner. And I remember listening to a Haitian who is in Haiti, who is an activist, and he has a group, and he's working an entrepreneur. He was incensed by the fact that sometimes he was addressed as Blanc. And this is a sign of rejection. And I have heard an anecdote that was very funny that shows how people could, in the same set, could go from rejection to inclusivity for the same person. So you are told, you are in a situation, oh, you are told as Blanc, you do something, you help someone, you are nice with someone, and then you change from Blanc to, another, someone of the group. So this is one of the things that is very dramatic. And there is a racist discourse, for example, against Haitians from Lebanese origin, because of course, economically they are the oligarch. Oligarch is a new word that has been used, in Haiti to refer to the well-off. So that you are now an oligarch, and you are rejected based on the fact that you were not from Africa, which is something contrary to what we had lived until, I would say, until 1986, 87. So this is one of the problems that we are facing, and this is why I think that any armed intervention is not going to solve the problem, because we have to sort out our own problem and to talk to each other. So this is one of my comments.
So we have the virtual audience is not seeing the in-person audience. We do have a hand in the room, in the physical room, but before I allow Dr. Northover to ask her question, Natalie Curry has been very patient. Dr. Curry, you can open your mic and speak now, and then we'll take Dr. Northover followed by Myrtle.
Okay, thank you so very much for giving me the floor. I'm joining you from Brussels, Belgium, so it really is an honor to be here as a fellow Caribbean national. And as I hear the discussions, I just wanted to reinforce what has been said by some of the speakers before. There is no way that you can have this crisis situation in Haiti, which has sadly been developing over the years. There's no way that this can be solved externally. I have heard in some of the presentations that in the midst of all of this economic and political and security crisis, you do have pockets of community organizations, community leaders who have somehow been able to find some solutions within the very minimal options which are available. And the more I hear of talks about security and whether the solution will come from the US or Canada or whichever political treaty is actualized, is the more nervous I get. I do believe we have to try and start incrementally. We have to go to the communities. We have to give those who have consistently felt that their voices are not being heard. We have to try to give them an audience through a process of a platform rather, where they can actually voice their concerns, whether it's in housing, education, employment, have a whole list, and then feed into platforms that are willing to be proactive. We know that Haiti, in the case of their membership in the Organization of African and Caribbean and Pacific States over here in Belgium, which consists of over 79 countries, a total population of over 1 billion people, there is a new focus now on the diaspora engagement. So the identification of the needs at the grassroots level and linking it with like-minded and pro-Haiti organizations, particularly with the diaspora, whether it's those from fellow island countries or fellow LDCs or fellow countries of the OACPS, there is a community that is willing to try to knock heads together in a spirit of finding a solution. And then once this grassroots approach is recognized and given a chance to air the grievances, and I feel that from this bottoms up approach, then you can really have a lot of these disgruntled groups, largely of which are, we can agree, are very young people that just feel that they are just not being given an audience. I think that can be a foundation upon which to build. And I'd like to encourage, as one of the conclusions coming out of this discussion, to see how we, as a group, as a Caribbean group, a group of academics, a group of private sector organizations who are interested, as well as a group of representatives of states who belong to international organizations and have access to sources of funding. How can we actually have a platform where there is at least identification of community leaders, even quote unquote, from whether it's the legal or illegal entities, but get all of these actors around the table to have a discussion, identify the needs, and give them the sense that their list of grievances at least will be a part of a process where, through the support of the diaspora, support of the state, irrespective of the level of trust, and as well as support of the community leaders, forge together some solution where it's an ongoing process. Thank you.
Can I just say that attitudes have been changing towards this issue of external force. There was a poll that was done by JACQUELINE, which basically showed that basically 70% of Haitians, even more than 70% actually, do not believe that the Haitian National Police can solve the security crisis on its own. They don't trust the police to solve it on its own. And 70% or 69% are saying that there needs to be some external force to provide the Haitian police. I mean, the people are saying that, you don't think that I think that this crisis is multidimensional. There's the short term, the immediate, and the long term. Today, in the short term, people are dying. People cannot move. People feel like they are sitting ducks. People's homes are being invaded. People are being kidnapped. It's not even just the money that you have to pay, but all of the ramifications, that come with that. I just personally lived through this with, with a friend of mine who was a victim. Another journalist that I'm close to was nearly killed. Journalists are leaving or fleeing this country. Very good journalists, are doing it. And everybody's just sort of asking where is rock bottom, going to be. And I think that people are increasingly at the point where they just feel like they can't breathe. And the solution cannot be that everybody try to get a sponsor in the United States so that they can come to the US. That's a whole other, debate for people in the diaspora. But I think that is, there's no silver bullet here in terms of this Haitian crisis, but I think we have to recognize that there is an immediate, fire that's happening, and every day it just seems to be getting worse, and it's becoming exasperated, just in terms of what the gangs are now using drones to scout out their victims. It's bad.
Thanks for sharing that. I'm going to ask Pat, you're going to speak from where you are, or? No, I think you may have to come closer to the.
You have to come here.
Yeah, unless you want, unmute your mic. Hi, greetings everyone. I'm Pat Northover from the SALISES Institute, colleague, Dr. Jones, senior fellow here. And it's been a very excellent presentation of views and perspectives. I think so much of what Marie has said is important about trying to link the politics with economics. And at the rock bottom, if we want to understand some of the contradictions happening in Haiti, I think we need to understand the development problematic, full stop. So within Haiti, there have been constantly forces for a certain model of development that is based on extractivism, which is based on this form of highly devalued bodies being used for the benefit and profitability of other groups. So that issues in relationship to the nature of the industries that reside in Haiti, issues in relationship to types of mining rights that are being sought in Haiti. All of these issues relate to a political economy, which is rooted in taking as much as possible and treating people as disposable. It's a racial sacrifice zone. And it has been that way. And the deep problematic associated with that is that if we continue to listen to key institutions that have provided a certain lens on how we proceed in terms of enhancing well-being, for example, the World Bank and the IMF, we've seen policies that they've introduced, structural adjustment, that have led to catastrophic loss in terms of the well-being of the population. Why? Liberalization prioritizes certain interests and rights over the autonomy and the independence of populations. So that if we wish to see solutions within Haiti, we need to understand that there is a broader development problematic that we need to locate Haiti within. We are all suffering from an existential crisis because of capitalism operating within its forms, which have led to this massive overconsumption and highly degrading forms of development, right? So even within the Caribbean, we may be looking at Haiti now, but we'll be looking at ourselves a little in a few moments later. Why? Because the forms of development internationally as a global political economy system are unsustainable. And we say that at every international forum that we need to change. Well, the change needs to be consistent. We can't be saying that we need to change internationally to new forms of sustainable development. Yet when we talk about what development means in Haiti, we're talking about more of the same, more of the forms of liberalized patterns of development in which a few gain and everybody else is fodder. I mean, everybody else dies, right? And I think when you sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind. So the violence that we're seeing in Haiti is a function of the violence that they've experienced over centuries. And this continued violence even within the region, the alienation and the shunning that we have when our Haitian brothers and sisters come into our own spaces. So this is a development problem where development has been pursued under a certain lens that leads to these kinds of fundamental tragic consequences, not just in Haiti, but internationally, we're facing a serious existential crisis because of the model development that we have. So the economics and the politics cannot be separated. And if we're going to set up a state in Haiti that is looking at trying to introduce these types of development patterns in the name of good governance, we are going to be right back at square one. The violence will never cease. The level of lack of trust is a reason. There's a reason that they don't trust the state because the state hasn't been against the nation. Michel Rolfe-Trouillot spoke to that very clearly. From the time in which there was the Haitian Revolution, there was a split and a fragmentation between the Haitian state of comprador state elite versus the autonomous peasantry and their counter-plantation visions of how you should develop. So that these splits have been historically and systematically developed based on the class of interests who seek to extract and those who are left to basically die because of the lack of autonomous development possibilities that they're given. So I'm sorry, I had a lot to say, but I believe that we cannot be just looking at Haiti in a vacuum or Haiti as a microcosm of some individual crisis. This is a global crisis. It's a crisis of global capitalism, its characteristics, and its institutions. It's fundamental institutions that go around
doing things to undo the capacity of nations to live and have sustainable lives. And the World Bank and the IMF have a lot to answer for what they have done in Haiti, and the international economic interests have a lot to answer for what they've done to Haiti. And the reparation struggle for the recompense and repair of the damages is something that every Black person, every person who has been colonized, right, should be arguing for as being a sine qua non of ethical transformation if we're going to have Haiti see a better future. I really apologize, Natalie, for the long time. But please, let us recognize that there is let us connect the dots and put the politics and the economics together.
There's some endorsements in the chat, so there are persons who agree with you, and I saw some shaking of heads from a few of the panelists. So anybody wants to make a quick comment? I will take Martha's question, and we'll probably have to have her question be the final one in order to wrap up our evening. Any thoughts, or should we just hand over to Martha? Okay, Martha, you can open your mic, please.
So it's not a question that I have. I just want to make a statement, and I am so grateful to Pat for her contribution, which has greatly shortened what I had to say because she said so much of what I had on my heart. So following on Pat's contribution, I first have to say that I'm a member of the Montana group, and I must therefore correct some of the things which have been said about Montana. Montana is not a group of political parties seeking to share power. Montana is a group of thousands of civil society organizations and some political parties which have come together and said enough is enough. The politicians have made a mess of the country for the last 200 years, and it's time for civil society to take things into their own hands to find real solutions for Haiti. Haiti is a country that has been taken hostage by the international community, starting with France, which destroyed the economy of the country with an odious ransom from 1825, which it took 122 years to repay, to ensure that Haiti, the infant nation of Haiti, would never develop. So in this age, when we're talking about reparation for slavery, the only country that's ever paid reparation for slavery is the one that most deserves to receive it, and that's Haiti. Then the US took over in 1915 and took the government hostage. And from that time, they have been ensuring that every government that comes up in Haiti is a proxy puppet government that, and I was also going to quote Michel Rolfe-Trouillot's brilliant book about state against nation, that they have ensured that the state is against the nation. They have maintained that system and made sure that they either have a dictatorship or they have the most corrupt person in power that they can find, who is willing, who is in power, not to work for the Haitian people, but to work but to do the bidding of the international community against Haiti, to do all of the things that Pat just listed, which is to destroy Haitian productivity, Haitian production, Haitian economy, Haitian manufacture, Haitian agriculture, kill Haitian pigs. Everything that can be done to destroy the Haitian economy has been done by the United States, which is the source of the problem. And all those people who are pretending to want to resolve the problem are the ones at the root of it. And everyone is beating around the bush and not talking about the elephant in the room, and they are the one. And all these people talk about Haiti fatigue. It's Haitians who are fatigued about the fact that they are constantly being destroyed. So Haiti can be just a source of cheap labor or source of slave labor for the region. That's all they want to reserve. That's a niche they have reserved for Haiti. And so when Montana came up and said, Haiti needs to get back its sovereignty. Haitians need to be able to elect their own leaders who are going to come and work for Haitians and not corrupt people who are there to do the bidding of the foreigners and who are there to sell out the country to whoever for mineral resources or whatever it is that they want to get from Haiti. And that is, and the plan was that once Montana was able to set up a consensus government of people who had been elected by civil society, thousands of civil society groups, they would have a national conference, sovereign conference, where Haitians would sit around the table and find what is good for them and what they want to see happen in their country. Haitians are not being allowed to choose their own government. Everyone knows that all those elections have been rigged. The people, Michel Martelly never won the election. People have been going, the UN and the OAS representatives went into the rooms of the CEP before the results were even announced to say they will not accept Jude Celestin, they will not accept certain people. Michel Martelly has to win. And they do it as grossly and as openly and as vulgarly as that in Haiti. Everyone knows that the system is rigged. There's a pretense of democracy, and the Haitians are not allowed to choose the people who are going to work in their favor. They look for the most corrupt people that they can find, or the ones that they have, they can hold some Damocles sword over their head because they have some drug record or some drug trafficking record or whatever it is. And now Ariel Henry is being named in the assassination attempt, so that's what they hold over him. And then those people will do anything for the foreigners bidding against the Haitian people. That is the source of the problem. Until Haitians are allowed to sit around the table, choose their own leaders, and find Haitian solutions, all of those people who are pretending to want to resolve the problem, all of those foreigners are not there to resolve the problem. They are there to compound it. And I will wrap up, but there's a famous line by Max Bellrive in the brilliant documentary on the earthquake, Raoul Peck's documentary about, what's it called again? The fatal assistance mortelle, which is like fatal aid, or I forget what the name is.
Fatal assistance.
Fatal assistance. He said, Haiti is the size of a city in the metropole, right? I think New York has more people than 11 million. But the entire world is here. The US is here, European Union, every European country, OAS, IMF, World Bank, everyone is in Haiti. If they wanted to resolve the problem, they could do it like that. They do not want to resolve the problems. They are the ones that are the source of the problem, creating the problem and pretending to be trying to find solutions. And it's these corrupt Haitian people who just can't get their act together, and they're scapegoating Haitians on top of that. So we have to recognize that this is what is going on. And as Mark said, that's the role CARICOM can play. They don't have any, like, for example, the other day, the gas was increased. And this is something when the UN has put out studies that 40% of Haitians are in food insecurity. People are starving, literally starving and dying of hunger in Haiti. They increased the price of gas 200% in the space of a year. When people cannot eat, there's no business, there's nothing going on, and they knew that everything would skyrocket and inflation came up to nearly 50%. And to get governments that will allow this kind of criminal acts against the population, that is what it's all about, that they maintain these corrupt people in power. Ariel Henry has not said a word about the massacres, the rape, the violation, the burning down of neighborhoods, the raping of children. He tweets about every single stupidity that happens all over the world. He has never said a word about the people being kidnapped, being raped, being killed, being driven out of their homes, sleeping on the street by the hundreds of thousands, right? So this is where we need to first, and to go back to what Mark was saying about CARICOM, CARICOM has to come up with the moral courage to say, to live up to what its mission is, which is to ensure good governance, civil peace, and all of these fundamental institutional structures to exist within their member states. And this is what CARICOM needs to do. They don't have the political might, they don't have the economic power, but they can stop rubber stamping fraudulent elections and stand up for the Haitian people if they have any spine, backbone, or moral courage whatsoever. So let's stop pretending that the problem is spontaneous combustion. The problem was purposely created in Haiti, and the United States and all these people are maintaining the problem. They're not trying to solve it. And we have to speak the truth, because we'll never get to the solution until the truth is spoken. So Montana is not there trying to solve power, to get power. Montana is trying to reclaim Haiti's sovereignty so the Haitian people can make decisions in their own interest and not be oppressed by people who are there to literally destroy them while pretending to be trying to fight, to bring humanitarian aid and find solutions. Sorry, but I had to say it.
Not a problem. It's only added maybe an additional layer of complexity to what is obviously a very perplexing and tense issue, a very vexing one for all of us. And all dialogue is welcome as we move towards seeking a resolution for our brothers and sisters. I would like to move to close. We've been on for a while, and I thank both the guests and panelists for your patience. I'm going to invite Dr. Ayika Smith to give closing remarks. But just before she comes, just to say a set of thank yous to the staff who made today possible. Dr. Henke for his suggestion of recommended Professor Schuller, sorry, for this evening's event, Ms. Cara Harris, Mr. Richard Leach, Mr. Richard McTaggart, Ms. Stacey Ann Williams-Dwyer, Ms. Carrie Coy Virtue, and the rest of our team who really came together and allowed us through tangible and intangible assistance to make tonight a reality. So I'm going to hand over to Ayika, who is actually representing the head of the Department of Government, Professor Suzette Houghton, to deliver closing remarks, and then we'll wrap up. The mic is taken.
Distinguished guests, panelists, colleagues, and students, members of the audience, good evening. I'm honored today to deliver the closing remarks for our seminar on Haiti. Haiti has witnessed a series of historical as well as economic, social, and political events that have left it in a state of paralysis. These events have threatened the sovereignty of the country, as well as heightened its vulnerabilities. Bearing such considerations, this seminar has been quite timely as well as relevant. Today, we observed and listened quite keenly to 4 excellent presentations from speakers drawn from diverse backgrounds and contexts. All speakers raised interesting points and acknowledged Haiti that Haiti has had a tumultuous past, which has shaped its future. I would like to thank each of these speakers for preparing thought-provoking presentations that have inspired us in a number of different ways. You have provided us with a framework, a very sound framework, to deep more understanding of Haiti. This will extend beyond the boundaries of this seminar today. Therefore, the closing of this seminar is not an end in itself, but it creates a new starting point to reflect on Haiti's struggles and how these might be overcome. In light of our speakers, Dr. MARIE-JOSÉ. I hope I'm getting it right today. Should I go again? Dr. MARIE-JOSÉ. Thank you. Her presentation explored Haiti's history. She also spoke about the deterioration of Haiti's economy. What is also interesting is that she pointed our attention to the importance of the Haitian diaspora. She also spoke about gang violence, and to that extent, she added that gang violence is the biggest tragedy facing Haiti today. Secondly, with the question of what next for Haiti, and looking at the government and the number of threats to the government, Dr. George FAURIOL invited us to think about the feasibility of external intervention in Haiti, but not only that, he made the case that Haiti needs some level of support, but that has to be done on a broad spectrum. In light of Professor Mark Schuller's presentation, he highlighted the issue of natural disasters. From our experiences in the Caribbean, we know that that has been quite complex. Prof. Schuller spoke about natural disasters and the accompanying economic burdens on Haiti as a developing country, as well as the severe impact that such natural disasters have unleashed on the lives of our brothers and sisters in Haiti. A favorite and popular word here today has become the gangsterization of the Haitian state. Moving on to Ms. Jacqueline Charles's presentation, it allowed us to think and reflect more deeply on those very broad questions of identity, othering, and belonging, which are all undeniably connected to the broader theme of migration. She also spoke about the anti-Haitian rhetoric and how the US has treated Haitians at its border. Generally, all of the speakers here today captured some very broad as well as pertinent questions, one of which is what path should Haiti pursue as it contemplates its future? Having listened quite intently to all our speakers and the discussions that we had here today from our audience, we have been charged to envision as well as to reflect on the possibility of a stable future for Haiti. Although this journey, the journey getting there, is going to be fraught with a number of complexities. A seminar like this is not complete without thanking the following persons. Firstly, I'd like to thank Dr. Holger Henke, the director of SALISES, who emphasized and reminded us not to neglect Haiti. Secondly, I'd like to thank my colleague, Dr. NATALIE DIETRICH, who functioned in multiple capacities today as our moderator and as the chief person responsible for organizing today's proceedings. Thank you for your vision and for creating a space to widen the conversation on Haiti. I also want to thank the members of our audience, both here in person and online. You listened attentively and you carefully crafted your questions. We're pleased with your engagement and support, and we look forward to seeing you at future events. To all the persons who assisted us in providing technical as well as administrative support, we also thank you. I can conclude that the purposes of our seminar today, a seminar aptly entitled Options for Haiti, External Intervention and its Relevance, and its alternatives, have been completely accomplished. Beyond this conference today, I hope that what we have been exposed to here today will enable us, what we have been exposed to here today will allow us to think more deeply about Haiti, and we'll be able to apply what we've been exposed to in many areas of our lives to reformulate as well as to raise new questions about Haiti's development in a climate of uncertainty. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you, Anita. And just before we bid adieu, a final bonsoir. Just like to thank Ishmael Preston, who is assisting us with the audio. I can't leave him out because Richard, our own staff, wasn't so well, but is still online. But Ishmael is physically here helping us tonight. So thank you everyone for your participation, and we hope to continue this dialogue on Haiti in subsequent seminars. And so hopefully we'll see you in the future. Good night, everyone.